Here I go again, here I go again. I'm in Los Angeles, I just
Bye week of year 2, week 7, almost at the midway point. I think we're 6-0 at this point, undefeated still. Let's go to the players that need upgrades. You can see Dan's at 70, but if we get him back next season, we could get him probably up to like an 85, somewhere around there. Manuel Hall, who we'll look to bring back next season in the free agency, who we tried to bring back this free agency season. He'll be probably over an 80, probably like an 82, 83. And then Grant Haley, who we're trying to make into a stud, he'll probably be about an 80 if we're able to re-sign him. Kevon Seymour, he'll probably be close to a high 70, like 79 or a 80 or a low 80s. And then Jimmy Moreland, I'd be surprised if he gets up to 80. And he's him and Kevon were two that I might bring back depending on the market. But just knowing that they'll be over 75, close to 80, I might just look to bring them back just due to their automatic depth that they'll add. KJ will look to bring back and feature him a little bit more next season, potentially. Andrew Voller I'll look to bring back maybe as a little bit lower in the depth chart if I decide to sign one as a free agent or pick one up in the draft. I'll be looking to add some tight end depth this offseason. Just a little bit more high level talent there, because I don't think he's on a long-term deal. Let me see real quick. Stats and contract. We'll see if he's on a long-term deal or not. Yeah, see, he's on a 1 year, so we'll look to bring him back longer term or look elsewhere into the free agency or the draft. Mark Fields I'll look to bring back. He's turning into a pretty good safety. He's pretty young, so I'll look to bring him back next season. Matt Lacoste might be a guy that gets dropped. Charles, I think this is one of the rookies that we signed or drafted. So we'll definitely look to bring him back. And Jamal Wiltz, who we'll probably look to bring back next season. Because he's like, I think he's 22. 24, so yeah, he might be coming back next season, or might move on from him, see if we can get somebody younger. Looking more towards the draft halfway through this season, obviously we're kind of set at tight end or lineman, which was our main draft focus in year 1 of the draft. Coming into year 2, we were looking to completely revamp our offensive line. So we got about 3 or 4 guys that I believe that are really gonna be the future for us there. So this season I've been looking more into let's go just to who I've scouted. Scouted a lot of cornerbacks, free safeties. Started to scout some linemen off that left tackle position. Let's go by position. Tight end is one of those things that I have scouted. Alante Paul. Alante Paul's kind of high up on my draft board, looking at drafting him in the 4th or 5th round potentially. More likely, if I do get the opportunity to draft him, it'll be a 4th round draft pick. The only thing that worries me a little bit about drafting a tight end in the draft is their speed might be an issue. Obviously, I don't have combine numbers out yet, but he is 22, so if he has decent speed, then we could potentially turn him into something spectacular. And him, along with Wyatt, are really the only two that I was looking at potentially drafting, because a lot of these guys up here, they're a little bit better, but also they falter a little bit in the draft. So, I mean, his is mid-3rd rounder, and his is probably about the same, a late 3rd rounder. So they're about the same, but he'll probably be picked up for 1st or 2nd round. I would be surprised if he falls in our lap at the 3rd round, but potentially. And then he's projected mid-4th round talent, so he's not really even on my board, seeing as how he's into the 4th. But potentially if Travis Strong falls into our lap, but Alante Paul is really where we're looking to get there. Haven't really scouted linemen too hard yet at the midpoint of the season. I might start doing that later if I potentially see some guys that I might like, or there's just nothing I've really scouted. Haven't really scouted any ends because they're a lot slower than I would like them to be. Usually if I draft them straight up along with linebackers is a hard position to draft speed for. You just kind of have to find it in free agency unless you get lucky with a really high touted pick that ends up having like 85 plus speed and 85 plus acceleration, which is really what I look for in terms of the linebacker position. Plus I don't really scout left or right ends because I tend to move linebackers to those positions anyway throughout the season and throughout training camp and preseason, so not really looking to draft those positions. Cornerback, definitely one of the places where I'm looking to find some steal in the draft. Another position that's a little bit risky. Obviously, I think a lot of the cornerbacks who came out last year didn't really have the speed that I was looking for. Like a 4.2, 4.3 is really where I'm looking to draft a cornerback at in terms of speed, just because they'll have what I need. But some late, more towards the later rounds, the 4th and 5th round talents is probably where I'll be looking to pick somebody up if I do decide to go towards that way in terms of drafting cornerbacks and free safeties. Obviously he's 22, so he's a little bit higher up on my draft board, and he's 22 as well. But I could potentially see this draft as one where we end up trading away our draft picks, because right now we projected our picks. Some of those are traded, some of those are our own. You can see the 2nd and 3rd round, and then the 4th and 5th round picks appear to be our own, seeing as how they're dead last. But we have 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 4 fourths, and a 5th. Yeah, 4 fourths and a 5th. So really just getting into those mid rounds where I can get a ton of steals. Free safety, I would like to draft a few of these guys here. Obviously, if he's a mid 2nd round talent, 23. If he falls in my lap, I might look towards drafting him depending on his combine numbers. All of these, by the way, match where I'm looking to draft with that hybrid, just in terms of man coverage and zone coverage. Obviously, if this guy fell in my lap in the 2nd round, he's a late 1st round talent, 21. He would be the ideal candidate. Obviously, hit power, speed is what I look for here. And then a few strong safeties that are all hybrids. Obviously, Nicholas would, let's see, mid, if these guys were a little bit early. Obviously, this is the guy I would look to draft, seeing as how he's got the best hit power, pursuit, and tackle out of these 3 men here, which are the only really ones draftable. But it all depends really on speed, so I'll be looking towards the safety and cornerback position a lot, see if I can't find a good line or a good tight end to draft. But other than that, that's really where I'm looking, just securing up our back end, looking for a long-term solution at free safety, and wrap up some of the 3rd and 4th depths in the depth chart in terms of cornerback, and then just getting a real stud tight end that we can use as our main go-to blanket for our quarterback in the future. But that's where we're looking at terms of draft and free agency. Obviously, we can take a quick look at our team right now. We can see the deficiencies. In terms of quarterback, I'm really impressed with Jacob Eason. Not really having any issues with him. He's got great, he's got good speed, not great. Obviously, Tyree, I revamped the playbook. Been looking into some Wildcat and some QB power formations with Tyree, looking to get him a little bit more involved in the offense. But I would not really like to see him involved a lot. I'd like to get a Sean Payton type offense installed halfway through this second season. I thought the bye week was a good time to add some more plays and test some things out, so I've been doing that recently. Corey Grant, obviously we're still looking for a long-term solution at running back. Travis Homer is a potential starter for next season if we can get him re-signed and under the cap. In terms of receiver, obviously we need Emmanuel Hall to come back, so that way we can get him up to an 80. But really our focus right now is Steven Sims, who's that superstar and only 23 years of age. I mean, we got him, I think we got him locked up long term. Yeah, we got him locked up until he's 29 or 30, so that'll pretty much carry him to the end of our roster. So he's a long-term stable receiver. He's going to be the star for this squad for a long time. Obviously trying to make Emmanuel Hall the 1A or the 1B to Steven Sims 1B. Obviously he was the stud last year, but you can see their speed and excel have kind of matched up, and Steven Sims has even passed him for acceleration, so he's become the all-out star. Then we got a couple of steady veterans and JJ Khalifi, and then we have a few up-and-comers. Obviously KJ's a little bit older than Emmanuel and Steven, so he'll be like a third option when these two vets obviously fall off, and then he'll be another vet that we try to get under the cap and into the roster. Malcolm Sheets is a rookie that I've been really impressed with his speed and how he's been practicing, and onto the tight ends. Obviously we need better depth here, more youth. Beck is a guy that I think we signed long term, so we'll be looking to add him to a growing roster. Will Ty is an experienced guy. Obviously he's over 71. We got him until he's age 30. And then Voller and Lacoste will be a couple guys that we look into in terms of free agency and where we want to pick up in the draft. But really no issue there, just steady production, but no outstanding. Charles Clark is a guy we're going to look to bring back this offseason, see if we can get him re-signed. Greg Robinson is a potential. I mean, he's really just a float piece at this point. See if we can't. I think he's already under the cap for the next 3 years. Oh yeah, he's under a 7-year contract. So pretty much he's just a float piece. We'll look to keep him there, and if we can find somebody better, then he's easily replaceable. John Runyon, he's going to be a guy that I want to build on. He'll be a main staple in this offensive line that I look to re-sign this offseason along with Von Mims, if he's not already under a long-term contract, and he's obviously at Star Dev, so throughout training practices and stuff, then he'll be able to boss up a little bit. Yeah, he's on a 4-year deal and not a minimum, so I think he's one of the guys that we drafted late in the draft. Then we move on to center position. We got Keston Copper, who we're going to look to re-sign this offseason, and then Justin is a guy that we have long-term, so not really looking at we'll just look and see if he's the best at that position with the depth and the age and whatnot, and then move on from there. Right guard, obviously Avanti Collins is not a long-term solution, and neither is really Alex Redmond. They're both a little bit older, so we'll look to just keep them here for a minute until we can find at least one replacement for the right guard position. Really, we got the center locked up, the left guard locked up, and the left tackle locked up to this point. So really we're just looking to replace him with a bit of youth that we can build on for the future. And then obviously another rookie draft pick that we had that was really a stud for us, Francis Peters, is a guy that we'll look to re-sign this offseason as well. And then his backup, who's signed long term. Not going to really worry about left guard. Obviously we have Jordan Evans. He's still young and he's fast as hell, so not really looking to make any moves there. Maybe just add some depth along with Matthew Thomas, who we moved from left outside linebacker, or maybe middle linebacker, over to this right guard position. Both 25, both really fast, so not really looking to make any moves there. And I think they're both signed long term. Yeah, they're both over 70. Well, he is at least. So not really making any moves there. D tackle. I will look to re-sign Nazir Jones this offseason. He could be a long-term starter for this team. And then everybody else either is already on a long-term contract, or I will just look into next season in terms of overall and age into re-signing them. Willie Harvey, obviously a long-term starter here. He's only 24. And then Emmanuel Ellerby, who's also a long-term starter. Troy Reeder is another guy who's a long-term starter, so we'll just look to add depth really in this linebacker position, most likely in free agency. Don't really like to draft that type of position. And then obviously Noah Dawkins, who's our standout stud star on defense, along with the cornerback and the free safety Dan Chencia. And then a Malik Jefferson who would be a guy we look to build this year and the next few years, seeing as how he's 23, fast as hell, and all that. So we really don't have to do a whole lot in terms of linebackers. Just look for solid backups. Greg Stroman is another star, and actually we can look at his Fearmonger and his abilities that he has. So he's got Fearmonger, then he's got Unfakeable, which is a great one, and then Edge Threat, which is exactly what we need him for. So he's really been blessed with the perfect abilities and the perfect X Factor. And then Greg Stroman, who's our long-term cornerback. I think we have him locked up for the next 7 years. Yeah, he's locked up on a minimum deal for the next 7 years. Obviously 93 overall. He's our stud lockup star. He can lock up any number one option, and then he's got tip drill in case somebody tips it, and then he's got a better chance to catch that off a pick. And then he's a pick artist, which gives him a higher chance to catch uncontested, and gives him a better stamina on the return, so he's more likely to outrun everybody on the defensive pick six type of play. Melifonwu, who led this team in interceptions last year, I'll look to keep him here for at least the next few years until we find a long-term solution. He's locked up on a 4 or 5 year deal, I believe, maybe a 7. Hardy, who we might look to re-sign. Kevon, who we might look to re-sign. Grant, which we do look to re-sign. He's actually one of the guys that I'm looking forward to him coming back. Jimmy, he might be just a plug-in piece. Mark, who I look to bring back, he has been a standout this year. Jamal Wiltz, who's played pretty good, and then Myrick, who's been our good return man. So we'll look to bring all those guys back who are on 1 year deals. Simone, not really worried about bringing him back. He might just be for depth. Brandon Bryant, he's a guy who I'm going to look to develop this offseason, or develop the rest of this season, bring back in the next offseason if he's not already in a long-term deal, which I believe he is. But he might just be, yeah, he's already on a long-term deal. So I'll just look to keep developing him as the backup in the emergency relief and kind of the special teams man. Dan, who I'll look to lock up next season to a long-term deal. We weren't able to secure that long-term deal with him this offseason, but he'll either be 23 or 24 if we're able to sign him to a 7-year deal, carrying out the rest of his career. Zedric Woods, who's a guy I'm going to look into bringing back this next offseason, see if he can't be become a starter or be a solid backup in an emergency relief kind of guy. Then Jonathan Brown, which we locked up long-term, I believe, who we look to just turn into a steady, consistent kicker. Yeah, we've put him on a 7-year deal. We've tried to get him more incorporated, going for less risky plays offensively, and just really give him the easy looks in terms of just kicking the field goals that are there for us and increasing our scoring output with him. And then Ryan Quigley, who we don't really focus too much on punting, but he's a solid punter. Get him locked up and then see if we can't he's more of like a float piece that we could just, potentially drop and then add a different punter in next year. Then obviously we talked about all our draft assets going into this off season. And then practice squad is really something that we haven't looked at. So we got a few fast young receivers on here, a few free safeties on here who are a little bit slow, but maybe if they develop, they could potentially make the 53-man roster. And then we got a tight end who we just look to keep kind of on the team and around the team, so that way when he eventually improves to like close to a 70 overall, then he might be a man that we look into bringing next offseason onto our 53-man roster. And then we got Jared Green, who was on this 53-man roster last year. Didn't quite make the cut, but we still wanted to keep him around, seeing how he's young and fast. Mark McLaurin, who was on the 53-man roster, didn't quite make that cut, but we still wanted to keep him around the team, seeing as how he's young and fast. And then Clinton Penn, who wasn't on this roster last year, a rookie that I might look into developing along with Ray Robinson and Tobias Murphy. Just all middle linebackers that I might look into developing, seeing how they're all young and have a ton of speed. But that wraps up the roster portion of this bye-week recap. Free agents, I looked into them, seeing if there was anything we could add to our 53-man roster. Didn't really find anything worth mentioning. Not really looking to make any trades. I traded away that first-round pick, and we got pretty good value out of that. We can look and see what value we got out of that. Yeah, we traded away our first, sixth, and a seventh for a second, third, and a fourth. So we just really added pretty good depth there, and we're able to get good value out of that trade. Statistically, looking into this season, we're 6th in passing yards, 13th in touchdowns, which is pretty good. 49th in the rush, which hasn't really been a focus this year, and 20th with rushing touchdowns. Then we got Steven Sims, who's been a stud, 1st and 2nd in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns, which is really good, quite good for this team. Really been focusing on the pass this year, just developing our quarterback, seeing as how we don't really have a running back that we would look to develop. And obviously he's 27th, top 30 in receiving. So really just doing a standout job all year. Looking at the awards in terms of who's been NFC Player of the Week offensively and defensively, we had Steven Sims and Noah Dawkins a couple weeks ago, and they've been really our standouts for week 5, week 4. Had nobody week 3, and pretty much just week 4 and 5. Yeah, it looks like Steven Sims and Noah Dawkins. He had 5 sacks, followed up that game with 7 sacks, which is outstanding. Steven Sims had 10 receptions for 283, which is really outstanding, in a receiving touchdown, and followed that up with 3 receptions, 202 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns in the next game. So really been quite a standout, and then just have had a few fall-off games where we haven't been as productive offensively as we would like to be, seeing as how we're 29th in yards, but defensively 1st in yards. Our defense has really been carrying this team. And we can actually look at our quarterback and see where we rank in terms of, touchdown to interception ratio is not great. Still looking at getting some things smoothed out, but in terms of completion percentage, we're pretty much on par with last year. 65's about league average, probably a little bit higher than league average. And then rushing, we're a little bit falling off. D'Angelo's been our power back through most of the season. Good attempts, but terrible averages with a touchdown. Then Corey Grant's been pretty decent all year for us. And then Jacob just running a little bit. And then in terms of receivers, we've really spread the ball out to our 3 big studs this year. Sims, Hall, and Ty. And then trying to get our tight ends involved. We got a Voller, who's our backup now at this point. But you can see we spread the ball with 21, 27, and 29. And then they all have a few touchdowns. And then we have a few guys down here who have not received any touches this year. Matt Lacoste, obviously, 3rd string, and then a bunch of backups. But we got pretty much 3 tight ends who have received a touch this year, which is what we look for. We'll try to spread the ball out to our running back a little bit more. You can see Henderson here with pretty good averages, 6 for 63, which isn't bad, but we'll look to get Corey Grant the ball a little bit more. out of the backfield, try and spread that out. Defensively, studs all over the board in terms of sacking and bringing pressure onto the quarterback, 16, 13, and 10. Then we got Malik, who has 3 in his first season with us. Willie coming back with 2. And then Troy Reeder in his first season having 2. And then Jeremy Evans coming out of that left edge position has 1 as well. So I'm not too worried about that them at this point. A good amount of solo tackles and assisted tackles for everybody. 3 guys in the 30s, which is really good at this point in the season. And then nothing to really discuss in terms of punting or kicking. I think John Brown's 4 for 4. His longest field goal has been 42, which is perfect, keeping him in nice range. And the only kick he's missed this year is 1 extra point, which isn't too worrisome. Then Ryan Quigley having a pretty damn good statistical season, averaging only 7 punts through 7 7 games, which is only a punt a game, which is pretty good. And then he's averaging 55 yards a punt, which only net 52, so pretty much where he punts it, that's where the ball dies. 5 inside the 20 out of 7 kicks, that's really quite outstanding, with his long being 67, which is pretty damn good. And then not too shabby in the kick return department. 9 kick returns for an average of 20 yards, which is pretty good, with him being pretty consistent with his average being 20 and his long being 30. So nothing really broken there. And then he's also our Khalifi's also our punt return man, so he's just our all-around return man with 11 for 146, dropping off to a 13, which isn't great, but his long being 24. And then Dan just getting 1 for 2. But yeah, all around our special teams has played pretty excellent this season, only missing 1 PAT out of all our kicks, and then averaging like 50 odd yards on a punt, 5 of those 7 being inside the 20. But that'll do it for this mid-season recap. You can see statistically we're doing great in terms of dubs and L's. We're doing great, and in terms of where we're looking up next season, we don't really have a whole lot of improvement that we can do. Just really team development, which is why I wanted to make this series, just to showcase team development and develop these players' storylines. But thanks for watching, thanks for subbing, and thanks for loving the series. If you love it, comment your comments in terms of what I could do better, and in terms of what you think of the series. But thanks for watching.
Yeah, Lord Phaser in this bitch. Yeah, yeah.